What's going on, everybody? This is Nicholas Natt, and you are tuned into the Natt Fitness Method.
You crazy mother...
My goal with the show and company are to be able to actually provide you guys with tactful strategies that can help you execute and move from where you are, point A, to point B. I'm very flattered, I'm very honored to be able to sit here with our guest. This gentleman is not only one of the most prestigious bodybuilders in Colorado, he is actually an International Federation Bodybuilding Pro. He was able to earn his pro card at one of the most difficult shows to ever get it, which is the USA Championships that takes place in Las Vegas. Since then, he's proven, and before then, that it is all about your reaction and your response to adversity. Quickly finding out about the hard knocks in life, he did not let that define him. He was able to recap his life, move out far West Coast, only to come faced with an even harder, life-altering burden that left he and his sister, as well as their mother, down on their knees. And although life dealt him one of the hardest blows, he was able to find out how he could respond to that, and in doing so has been able to not only transform his life and see yet his best success to come, but the success of many others. So let me introduce you to my great friend, Justin Vetters. Justin, thank you so much for coming in today, man.
Thanks for having me, appreciate
Absolutely, awesome stuff.
Yeah.
And you just had the 4th of July, how was yours?
It was great, it was relaxing, spent some time on the water, couldn't have asked for a better 4th.
There you go,
Yeah.
right? You said you had a chance to paddleboard, right?
Paddleboarding, had some food, got some sunshine.
Right.
Fireworks are mandatory.
Of course.
So got some of those
You didn't
in.
set any up, you watched them.
We watched them, yeah.
There
We
you
didn't
go.
set any up of our
There you
own. Neighborhood has a lot of kids and things in it,
Uh-huh.
so we got to see plenty secondhand and kind of participate vicariously through that.
Vicariously.
Right, yeah.
I always love those people who go to Wyoming and get like those illegal ones.
The things you
and
can't
they
buy
shoot
here.
them off.
Yeah, yeah.
But then it's like the one time, like, it never happens like where you are, but you always hear somebody who set like a backyard on fire.
Right,
doing it.
right.
I always want
Right,
that.
or they send one like
I don't want
through the
somebody to get
neighbor's
hurt,
window.
but I always
Yeah.
want to like see like, oh, the neighbor burned the house. Like,
Yeah.
they built the flower bed or something. So
Right.
no, Justin, it's really great having you on, and I said this from the very beginning. I think that in the sport of bodybuilding, but in the fitness industry as a whole, it can get a good rap and it can get a bad rap. And one of the things that unfortunately gives fitness a bad rap is, I think, this charisma. It's the way that people walk and they carry themselves. It's the way that people, communicate and connect with others, or disconnect and disassociate from others. And you've always been very charismatic. You've always been very polite. You've always had a very strong and confident demeanor. It's never been really recessive, but at the same time, you've also been very genuine and open to listen to where that's come from. So why don't you talk a little bit about, what makes you that kind of a person, and why you chose to live your life as a value in that way?
Sure. I guess the easiest way to put it would be is what you alluded to in the beginning. Everyone has a story. Everyone's been through something in their life. And if they haven't been through something, maybe they're currently going through something. Everyone started out as a beginner at one point in their life. No one just starts out as a pro. No one starts out as an expert. And so because of that, it's good to be just genuine to everyone that you meet, and to be interested in everyone that you meet. Take an interest in the other person, because life is not all about us as individuals.
Sure.
It's about other folks and the value we can bring to somebody else's life, and the enrichment that we can provide to other people as well. Like, we all have our own goals and our own motivations and our own reason for doing things.
Right.
That shouldn't totally dominate our life either.
It seems like there's this funny paradigm within the human culture of, the nice guy always finishes last. And
Sure.
I call you a very humble, a very, pragmatic, but a very focused and a very selfless individual. So naturally, yes, you are nice falls into that, right?
Sure.
And you were raised by your mom as a single parent.
Yep.
You and your sisters,
Yep.
two of you,
Correct.
right? So, growing up, what was that like for you to basically be the man of the house?
At a young age, yeah, that's a good question, and that's something that I've spent some time thinking about in the past, because when you're a kid, you don't really realize that's what's going on.
Right.
But then you get to a certain age and you kind of become a little bit aware of it, because you start to notice other households where things are different. There is a man of the house that might be the traditional, he's the provider, he goes out, he works, he pays the bills, whatever, and you come home and you don't see those things. You're like, okay, why is this different? I have one parent trying to fulfill both roles. And how do I fit into that? And it's one of those things where, at least for me, it's kind of an organic shift into, once I started to become aware of the true situation that was going on, then I started to kind of organically fit myself into that role. I would start to pick up more responsibility around the house. I would start to try to contribute more, to try to shoulder more of the load once I became aware of what was happening.
I think so many people, from a secondary or just a general spectator's perspective, would say like, oh man, that sucks. Like, you had to basically do, how did that end up serving you? Like, can you look at different dimensions and different perspectives in your life now?
Oh yeah,
where
sure.
That has basically, been a foundation.
Yeah, well, and that it has been a foundation. That established in me a lot of very good core values that we started this conversation with. It's like, if you get taught at an early age the value of responsibility, the value of not having that self-centric personality and chipping in and carrying your own weight, and then graduating on to helping others up, helping others along, you start to see how important that really is. And it's not something that I think would be easy to teach. Like, it would be very difficult for somebody to sit down and try to explain one person to another, like, here's what you should do, here's how things should be.
A theoretical almost.
Right, that would be a very difficult
as
thing
an
to do.
empirical lesson, right.
Right, it was almost like an immersion,
right?
It's like you're in the situation and you adapt. Human beings are very, very good at adapting to environmental variables. That kind of situation is no different. So you just kind of adapt to that situation, and I think it served me very well later in life when I needed to adapt again, and I needed to kind of grow and evolve and fill a new role over again. So it provided a very good foundation, moving forward later in my life, and it provides a great foundation for owning a business, being a coach, being in a position where people look to you in a certain context.
Absolutely.
To say, hey, I need guidance, or I need input, or I just need someone to be there. I just need someone to listen to me.
Right.
Because this is what I got going on, and once I'm able to let it out, then I feel better about it, and then I can start to process and move forward and start to deal with what's going on in my life now that I've just had you to listen to me, kind of thing.
You had, a very, I wouldn't say typical upbringing, but, you went to school, you graduated, and then you went to college.
Yep.
Where did you go?
Montana State.
You graduated with your degree,
Yep.
and then you actually got a very niche job, right?
Very niche job.
Talk to us about that and kind of your lifestyle.
Sure. So I got my degree in a technical field. I was doing geospatial technology. The way I always describe it to folks is, you get on your phone and you say, Google a Starbucks near me, right, and then take me there. It's that location-aware technology. I was doing a lot of that, and I did it for a variety of sectors. I did it for oil and gas exploration. I did it for midstream oil and gas, the companies that ship that product in between states, to coastlines, in from coastlines, what have you. I've done it for the Forest Service. I was a contractor for the Marine Corps at one point. And so I spent many years in that field, and I was fortunate to be one of the few people nowadays that got a job in the field that they actually went to school for.
Right.
And I felt fortunate in and of that, like that simple fact. I was like, oh great, I went to school and I got this education, and I'm now directly applying my education to this field that I'm working in. Yeah.
Now, when you did that, did you get a degree and then you had the job? Like, how much space between when you graduated and the job, or was it already pretty much lined up prior to graduation?
I had a job before I graduated.
There you go, right? Yeah. Okay, so that's kind of like the dream, right? And most of the time it doesn't really happen that way.
No.
So with that, got the car, got the mortgage,
all
car,
the usual stuff.
the
Yeah.
usual stuff, right?
Mhm.
So you're kind of living the life.
Yeah.
Now, this is kind of what's the experience? Life's experience is the best teacher.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Totally.
you know, there's really this altering, moment in your life that kind of sets you up. And what was that moment?
Sure. To go back half a step to what you said about the mortgage, the car, all the things I was doing, I was following kind of that traditional American dream, right?
Sure.
You go get your education, you get a house, you get a car, you take on some debt, that's just what you do.
Right.
You contribute to a retirement account. I was doing all the standard stuff. And again, I felt fortunate that I had a job that was covering most of this. And I say most because that leads into where we're going with this. And to be in that position, I felt like I was kind of making it, right? I mean, I was doing everything that I was told that I was supposed to be doing.
Right.
And I was making good money in doing it.
Very young age.
At a young age, right.
Right.
And so I felt like I was sort of ahead of the curve, so to speak. And then very abruptly and very unexpectedly, this lucrative, high-paying job that I had in this growing tech field stopped. But life is the best teacher. Life experiences are the best teacher. All of the things that I had accrued with that job, the car payment, the mortgage, the credit card bills, the student loans, all of these things that I was told I was supposed to have as an adult, right? These are adult responsibilities you're supposed to have. Those don't stop just because the job goes away, right? Those don't go
Bill
anywhere.
still comes in first of the month.
That's it.
Rent still due, right?
Those don't go anywhere. And so
Right.
because this job I had was so niche, as you mentioned, it was very, very hard to find a replacement. And so I ended up working odd jobs and ends and just trying to make ends meet wherever I could.
How long did this happen for?
So this was over the period of, let me think back. It took me the better part of a year to find another job.
Okay.
So it was, and at that point I was, as with a lot of Americans, I had, less than 2 months of living expenses saved. I didn't have a proper rainy day fund, so to speak. I was way over leveraged financially. So I quickly burned up any savings that I had. I ended up having at one point to even file for unemployment. I had to swallow that bitter little pill, and here I am, this college educated guy with a house and a nice car and all these things again that I thought I was supposed to have. I had to file for unemployment. I drove a truck for UPS during the holidays just to try to crank in a bunch of hours, a bunch of extra revenue, as much as I could bring in. That Thanksgiving to just after New Year's window when everyone orders everything, decides what they want to keep and don't want, and then sends the rest back to Amazon or wherever it came from, right? So driving a truck for UPS, again, just trying to make ends meet. And then I got very, very, very behind on all of my bills, as you might imagine, because I went from a compensation package that was comfortably in the six figures to zero, when I lost that job. And again, that type of compensation package, you don't just go down the street and pick up a second one.
Sure.
And so by the time I finally got another one, I was way behind on everything, all of those bills. And I was able to secure a contract in Southern California doing this line of work for the Marine Corps. And I moved to Southern California on like 2 weeks' notice. I packed up my house, I threw most everything I owned in the back of a U-Haul, and I moved sight unseen because I was basically desperate for cash at that point.
Right.
I was like, I needed a job, I got a job, I didn't care where it was in the field that I knew.
Right.
The compensation was where I needed it to be to cover those bills.
Right.
And I went for it.
You went for it.
So.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, here's the saving grace. You get this job, you kind of dodge a bullet, and like you're able to kind of sit down for a little bit. So at this point, one of the things I think that's imperative to kind of talk about before we kind of shift gears and go into the next part of your life is that, you're known in parallel as a bodybuilder. And you really entered the industry around this time, and we're doing very well.
Sure.
And at this point, you know, it's a funny thing. People always say that from the outside looking in, you have a very convoluted picture of what the sport is, but from the inside looking out, it'll teach you or give you more than probably what you're ever asking for.
Yeah, I would say that's
so. How did bodybuilding fit into this picture, or I guess even more so, how did you get into bodybuilding?
Sure.
What happened during this time, and how did bodybuilding basically, what did bodybuilding give to you?
Sure, I think that's a great question. So while I was working still, so when you get a job like this, you know, you spend a lot of hours at a desk, you're sedentary. When I was working in the oil and gas exploration industry, I was working with a field crew. I was running a field crew out in remote locations. I was living in a hotel for 6-7 weeks at a time. And my residence was in a hotel. My office was in a hotel. I wasn't eating well. I was largely sedentary, sitting at a desk. So I got very unhealthy. I was in great shape in college. I was a competitive skier. I was a competitive rock climber. And then I get this job, and my whole schedule world, everything shifted, and I started to get very unhealthy. So I found bodybuilding while I was still working. You know, I got myself to kind of like a baseline level of fitness, just doing normal stuff, doing plyometrics. You know, I did one of those, I did the Insanity program in my living room.
There you go.
You know,
Sean T
yelling at me from the TV.
That's right.
Right. So
get
I did
it,
that.
boy, get it.
That's it. I did that whole thing, and I got myself back to a reasonable spot. You know, I kind of learned how to eat. I started being more conscious, making better decisions with my health and all those kinds of things. And I found bodybuilding as the next milestone, right? I found it in all of that time and said, okay, I think this is the next thing for me. This is the next phase. This is the evolution of my fitness, and I want to pursue that. So I competed in my first show in 2014, and I went through this trying experience later in 2015. I was actually on prep for my second show in 2015 when I lost my job. So I actually continued prep through all of this, which in hindsight was not a good decision, right? I was already underwater,
spread thin.
But I knew that if I gave up on that was going to be very detrimental to me. So I saw that through, because I was about 3 weeks out from my show when I lost my job.
So you're depleted.
So
it's like the lesser of two evils.
You're right, yeah. So I just decided to buckle down and just make that last push to get through my show. Wow. Because I already committed so much time on the front end to get to that point. So I said, okay, I'm going to buckle down. I'm going to see this through. Those last few weeks into my show. And so bodybuilding was present through all of this going on. And I kind of relied on that as the one, and I say this to my clients too, because it's something that I believe wholeheartedly, is that it was the one stable piece of my life that I had control of when everything else felt like chaos. When it felt like, as you know, it felt like the walls were crumbling in, so to speak. And I was scrambling and trying to find anything solid to push off of. Bodybuilding filled that role for me, because I could go to the gym and I was in complete control of what happened there. I was in control of the things I was eating. You know, I can still eat the way I need to eat. I can still run down to the store and buy chicken. Chicken and rice is super inexpensive.
Right.
You know, and when you're on a tight budget, it works great.
That's it. Right.
So oats, super inexpensive, and so I used that as my foundation to stand on, and that served me very well. And so I stood on that, and I kept it going all the way through when I moved to California, and then once I got there, it kind of shifted gears along with everything else.
So you make it out to California. You're still bodybuilding.
Yep.
I think at this point you had mentioned that you were coaching some people super part-time, or you weren't yet coaching yet?
I had a couple of clients super part-time.
Super
Most
part-time.
of them were for free. It was people that I was helping out, you know,
Things like that.
You know, try to roughly calculate some macros for them, like look at the things they were eating.
Things like that.
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Okay.
Friends.
Excellent.
Nothing real serious, yeah.
And then one day. You get a phone call.
One day I get a phone call from my business partner. His
World
name's
changes.
Tony, yes, and that was a big game changer for me, because Tony was present through this whole thing. He knew what I was going through, and at that point, he had some clients of his own. I had some clients of my own. His now wife had some clients of her own at the time. We were all kind of doing our own thing, again, helping some folks out on the side. And that's when our company, Atlas Nutrition, came to be. I got a phone call from him, and he had actually started the company as a clothing company called Atlas Athletics. And it wasn't doing so hot because, like every young, motivated guy, he's like, I'm gonna start a t-shirt company, and I'm gonna have this big boom, and I'm gonna start a clothing company. It's gonna be immensely successful, and didn't happen.
Right.
Didn't happen for him. So I get this phone call that says, hey, I need to do something different. Like, how can I salvage this brand? What can I do with this? Because I trust you and I confide in you from a business standpoint, and you're my best friend. What can we do? So we created Atlas Nutrition. We carried the Atlas name over, and we became a coaching company, because throughout this conversation, we identified a need in the fitness industry for a different coaching model.
Right.
We had all had a coach, or did have a coach at that point. There was kind of the standard coaching model. That was a coach and a team of clients, and we identified a need and what we felt was perhaps a better, updated, different way of doing it.
Right.
And so we kind of banded our resources together, created this new brand to fill this need for a competitive team of athletes in a largely individualized sport. And that's how Atlas Nutrition was born. Was in that moment while I was out in California trying to get my wits about me again. That's how it came to be.
So you have this exciting thing happening. You're out in California. You took a hit early in life, but you're kind of finding your feet above ground. Now, the dreamer in you. That entrepreneurial excitement and that right side of the brain is starting to kick in.
Yeah.
You get a call from the best friend. There's some great things happening, and they're passion driven.
Yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Life serves you a big old pile of hard knocks.
Yeah, another one. And so
what ended up happening?
Yeah, so I was out in California for a little over a year, but I learned a good lesson when I was there, right, from what had happened previously from a financial standpoint.
Right.
So while this was going on, I was doubling, tripling down on bills. Every spare dollar I had was either going into the business or to pay down something as fast and as hot and heavy as I could do it, right? Because I was like, I will never end up in that spot again. Like, I came so close to losing everything and hitting the bottom. I came down and grazed it and just squeaked by. I was like, I will never, ever, ever do that again. And so, and so I was getting into this rhythm, as you mentioned, passion-driven. Business was starting to grow a little bit. We were getting some recognition. Finances were looking good, better at that point. And then, my mom was actually diagnosed with a late-stage brain tumor. That caught all of us very, very off guard, because she didn't exhibit any symptoms until she was very late stage. And it happened over a couple of months. And for reference, this is we're talking November of 2016 timeframe. I had seen her in October, and something was a little off with her, and I asked her to go to the doctor. I saw her again in November, and she was a little worse, and she was having symptoms of almost dementia, Alzheimer's. You could tell something wasn't right. Something wasn't right there. And then by December, I got a phone call. She had gone in for a routine doctor's appointment, and they had hospitalized her for several days and diagnosed her with this late-stage brain tumor. They found it when she went in for her yearly physical. They were like, okay, something's not right here. We want to do some other tests on you, right now, today, because we think they're neurological. We think there's something going on.
Wow.
And they caught it then, and she'd been in the hospital for a couple of days. And they were like, yeah, this is the prognosis. This is what's going on. It was just that quick.
In and out.
In and out. And so, back full time to be a caregiver for mom, full time caregiver.
What was that experience like for you? Not so much for her, but for you.
Sure. That experience, that's one of those things I don't know how you can truly explain and fully put into context to have someone else understand. But that, I guess the best way I can say it to anyone that's familiar with the sport of bodybuilding and following a diet, doing cardio and prepping for a show and all of these things that are difficult, that in and of itself made bodybuilding feel easy. Because it's not
Which
only...
it's not. Not.
Bodybuilding itself. Bodybuilding, it's, some people, I've heard it said it's the most difficult sport you can do.
The hands down most difficult.
It's 24 hours a day. It's your diet, it's your training, it's your sleep, it's everything.
Psychology, emotionality.
It's all of that.
Volatility. I mean, it's right.
It's all of those things, right? And so being a full-time caregiver encompassed all those same things, but in a different context, right? Mm-hmm. There's this deep emotional tie to the person that you're taking care of. It's 24 hours a day. She didn't sleep at night. She was, because of her condition, she was afraid to sleep at night. And so she'd try to get up and wander around the house at night. She'd be okay to cat nap during the day. She would get so tired she would just fall asleep. But she'd wander the house at night. And if she was in bed, she would lay there and she would yell because she didn't want to fall asleep. She was trying to keep herself awake. She would just lay in her bed and yell to try to keep herself awake. Again, it's one of those dementia things that she didn't really know what she was doing at the time. She just knew at a fundamental level that she was basically scared to fall asleep. And so this whole experience encompassed all of those things. It was a 24-hour-a-day job to care for her, to prepare meals for her, to grocery shop, all the way down to things like hygiene and all of this. I had to do everything for her. Meanwhile, still try to have some semblance of my own life, feed myself, go to the gym whenever I could for my own sense of foundation again. I was looking back to bodybuilding a second time for that sense of foundation, when it felt like everything was going crazy. I looked to bodybuilding again because I had seen success with it once as that foundation. And so I was trying to get into the gym when I could for my own well-being. Right, exactly. Right. I would go into the gym and I would put my headphones on and I would lift and I would just try to burn all that negative energy out of me. And I would feel relieved and exhausted and all these things all at the same time. But I stood on it a second time to help me get through that period of time.
So what happened following that?
It took about 4 months. Unfortunately, she lost her fight with the tumor in her brain. But during that whole time, again, life's experiences are the best teachers. I had a lot of light bulb moments and, moments of introspective where I was learning things about myself and the things that I was really capable of doing that I didn't know were in there until I was put in a position where I didn't have a choice. It's like you don't have a choice in this matter. You just have to do this.
You do it.
You're right. There is no do I not. Like, you just have to do this.
Right.
Because I had to.
There's a quote by Martin Luther King that says, "The ultimate measure of a man is not where he stands at moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of true conflict and controversy."
And I would say that was true conflict.
That is exactly
controversy.
You can't. There is no plan B. It's like you got to cross this bridge because it's the only way.
That's it. Yeah.
You're gonna burn or you're gonna cross.
And that was it because meanwhile, while this was still going on, I was still trying to dig myself out from losing the job the year before. And so I was doing that full-time job from home while being a full-time caregiver, while trying to start a company, while trying to be a bodybuilder. I had all of these, and I was trying to juggle all of this and sleep when I could and try to stick to some sort of a diet and just feed myself as many clean calories as I could at a time when I got a chance to do it. Because I knew that I couldn't just let it all go.
Right.
Because one of my mentors actually said to me, which was kind of a tough dose of reality, but he said to me during this time, he goes, I can't imagine how hard this is for you. He said, but your life is going to go on after this. So you have to hold on to something that's going to pull you through to the other end, that you have to keep holding on to, because when this chapter of your life passes, your life is going to keep going. So you have to stay vested in yourself too. And that was probably one of the most profound things that I could have heard in that moment. I mean, it sounds simple, but when you're in that moment, it was like
saving grace.
It was. It literally was.
Absolutely.
And so I was trying to do the job, be the caregiver, grow the business, and be a bodybuilder all at the same time. And then when she passed, that was the moment where it was like, okay, now I really, first of all, I have this new appreciation, so to speak, this face-to-face view of human mortality and what happens to the body when it deteriorates and breaks down, and when the circuits don't line up, so to speak, right? I have this face-to-face experience with this. And so I said, I have to do the things that drive me. I have to live my life to a certain level of quality and fulfillment, so that when that happens to me, I don't carry regret forward into that experience. I don't carry a sense of lacking or longing for something that I could have and should have and perhaps would have done if I wasn't following a different path.
It's so unique that you say that, because I feel like that's so difficult for people to have. It's so difficult for people to have a level of commitment and a level of focus where they can make delayed gratification and be mature and make these decisions that are ultimately going to be able to help them live with life that way consistently. Not, for 3 months when they're prepping their show.
Right.
We've seen that people can do that, but it's very difficult for people to do that when there's not an immediate goal.
Right.
And I think that something as powerful as seeing, the woman that brought you into this world, your heart, your soul, I think in that moment, and being the caregiver, being with her in the last moments of her life and seeing her every day, I think that can really help you cultivate perspective.
Sure.
And I really want to admire, what that took in you, Justin, because as we had said before, so many people, I think, can become, when it comes to death, so many people can become so frustrated. Many people can become, they can develop a victim mindset, and they don't have someone in their ear because they haven't lived with values and intention and put people around them who, when the time shows up, they're going to be there to say the right thing at the right time.
Right.
To say, hey, your life's going to go on. They probably, and no disrespect to people, have put the friend around them. It's just like, oh man, let's go drink.
Right.
And then that perpetuates a way of, not in the moment, and there's nothing wrong with having a drink, especially when your heart is broken, your world is, collapsed. But I think it is the ability for you in the hardest moment to have to, when you have nothing left, go and pick that back up. And when you said to me the first time we talked that, this pain, bodybuilding and the pain, which is very tough, pales in comparison to this. I'm just like, dude, I can only imagine. I've experienced death, both, sides of the family. My dad owned a mortuary. And so, you see people grieve, and you see people go through those experiences, and you see people have something so precious, so important, that is not, a monetary value, that only fits right then and there.
Right.
Go through this process. And I think that so many people allow it to rob them. And I say rob them, what I really mean by is it robs them of the potential that they could become, the individual that they could. And I really, applaud your ability to have a level of commitment at such an early age, which, like you said, you probably just did because you were supposed to and you were supposed to step up. But having that habitual process that's compounded over year after time, after hardship and the response that ultimately ended up serving you. And this moment that could have broken you, it's broken many people.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You know, it brought you to light. And because of that, you know, you have a great relationship with Amy. Amy's here. You guys can't see her, but
She's right off camera right here, yeah.
You know, you've got a couple dogs.
Yeah.
You know, very happy.
Yeah.
You and Tony Polidoro. I said that
Polidoro.
right? Polidoro. You know, you guys have built a great organization out here, Armbrust Pro Gym.
Yeah.
You guys have the privilege every day of being able to help people in the most, you know, pragmatic ways. Try to live a better version of their life. And
Absolutely.
get the cyclicality of it, because there's, you know, people in the exciting parts, like, you know, show this weekend.
Yeah.
You get a couple clients in the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do I. I have a couple. But then you also get the people who come in and they got to hear the raw. They got to hear the truth.
Yeah,
they got to hear what, you know, society is trying to put sugar on, and you're like, no, this is the truth.
Let me give it to you. Yeah, let me give you the real version.
Let me give you the real version of that. You know,
Yeah.
that's not sugar and bread. That's a horse pill, bro.
Right.
You know.
Right.
And so, in addition to that, you know, we are going to be doing pro debut. Have you thought about possible shows, or right now the focus is just growth?
Right now the focus is growth. From a physique standpoint, the focus is growth. And then the focus is also growth from a business standpoint. You know, right now I still train, I still eat, but my focus right now has been the business since earning my pro card. Excuse me. That was one of the biggest goals, excuse me again, that I've set for myself in my life. And so when I was able to check that box, as great as that felt, then I knew it was like, okay, there's one big goal down. I've made that gate, so to speak. And then I shifted my focus into the business and continuing that rhythm that I started several years ago when I got that job that kind of was the saving grace several years ago, of continuing to build that financial future and the rest of life outside of bodybuilding. With as much as I love bodybuilding,
Sure.
the truth is not lost on me that it has an expiration date for me as a bodybuilder.
Right.
I can continue to love the gym and train. I can continue to coach people. I can continue to live the lifestyle. But for me as an individual, as a competitor, it has an expiration date. And so I'm trying to essentially position the rest of everything outside of that in such a way that it will almost be self-sustaining. And then I can step back into the athlete role, make that pro debut, live on that professional circuit for as long as that timeline is for me.
Let it happen, right.
Right. And not let the rest of anything else suffer.
Exactly.
And so that's kind of where I'm at now, is I'm in that positioning phase of growing the business, setting up the multiple revenue streams that are, again, as self-sustaining as possible. They all require some level of management and input, obviously. But the more of them I can have and the more automatic they are, that just suits me that much better looking forward down the road.
No, I think it's a very disciplined. You know, I think I was just having a conversation with my coach about this, and we were talking over and over about the impulsivity. You know, bodybuilding is one of those sports where if you compare it to fighting and you make one side step, it's not that that athlete is better than you, but he or she might land that hook. Right. And it takes you down. Right. And quickly you're like, I'm already in, I'm already trained up. I want to get back in the ring. And it's like, it's not to say that that's not something you can do, but I think it is looking at the macro, not the micro. Bodybuilding is a tool. It is. You know, and it's like looking at the macro and saying,
big picture,
if fulfillment, happiness, and autonomy, you know, that freedom, autonomy is huge. It's huge. Are the priorities. That's the thing that's going to nourish your soul and allow you to not only live with passion, so that way when you do step on the pro circuit, you're at your best. Right. But also live with purpose, which is that of which you contribute and give to others. Right. Something much bigger than just yourself. Absolutely, contribute something bigger. Right. I think that it takes that discipline, because again, if the impulsivity, and because that's where the temperature is, that's where the emotion is,
Right.
people
Right.
hop into that, and then they get into a position where they shoot themselves in the foot financially because
Yeah.
they have nothing else. They do a show and they come back and they're like, well, dude, you haven't worked in 2 months. You have nothing
No way.
saved.
Yeah,
You spent your money to go to show, and
Right.
you know, or you know, you ostracize yourself from the people who are supposed to be at your table.
Right.
And you want to go out and celebrate life, and it's like those people aren't there.
Right.
And so I think it's a very mature thing, and the reason I bring all that up as we, you know, kind of come to a close before I ask my last question is really because you were able to utilize and instruct and incorporate some of the most daunting things that people usually allow and set them back. And when it's hard, when you have not just the people who care about you who are like, yeah, you know, life isn't fair and bad things happen to good people, you know, we
Right.
hear these things, you ultimately did not let it define you.
No.
And what you ultimately realized is that regardless of whatever circumstance, my reaction, my response long term will always be the deciding factor of whatever ends up happening outcome. Event plus response equals outcome.
Absolutely.
And I think that, you know, what's powerful about that is, you know, you can go on social media and see all these Instagram pages and these quotes and things like that, and I don't knock that because it's better than the other stuff. We'll just say that, you know, that's out there. But, you know, you are somebody who's actually lived that. And I think when an athlete's going to come train with you, or when you're going to be doing other business deals, people are going to know that this is a man with the vision and the psychology, but he's an empiricist on every virtuosity. He's driven, you know, these values and these lessons from experience. And I think that there's power behind that, man.
Sure, absolutely.
So my last question, well, I guess before I ask my last question, I want to acknowledge you and thank you, man.
Oh, yeah.
I want to thank you for your generous time to come and here on Saturday and
Yeah.
share your life, to be very vulnerable, and to give, you know, to give your experiences, to give yourselves, to give, you know, these lessons, and ultimately to be able to help people who might be finding themselves in one facet or the other and where you were.
Right.
And that's hopeful. I think that's what it is. If anything, it might not make the person feel better or different in their situation now, but it does give hope. Someone might go to bed, and my hallucination would be that they can have that can-do, that flame that's about to go out might be rekindled and come back.
For sure.
You know, and they can push past it.
If somebody else can hear my story and my experience, and it has a positive influence on them in some way, whatever way that might be. It's personal, it's financial, it's the sport of bodybuilding, it's, you know, I've thought about being an entrepreneur, but I don't know, and, you know, maybe now hearing what he's been through will help me take that step and see that it's doable even in the face of adversity, and that, you know, if it helps someone, you know, that's really what I want to do, is be able to help somebody rekindle that flame, or maybe make that step, or just even have that acknowledgement that, you know what, we all have our thing. Like, you're not alone, and because you've been through something in life, or that you have a hard story, or you're currently going through something, that doesn't make you, you know, an outsider. If anything, that makes you relatable to more people, because the majority of us have a story. So
Yeah. Well, it's kind of funny because that definitely was the last question.
Okay.
And you answered it already.
Okay.
You know, so great minds think alike. So,
I guess, yeah.
Justin, I want to thank you so much
Yeah.
for coming on, man. This has been truly great.
Appreciate it.
You guys, before you go, how can people connect with you?
Sure.
Connect with, you know, your company, or figure out what's going on, or maybe talk to you personally.
Sure. So the name of my company is Atlas Nutrition. This is our logo here. If you're ever inside Armbrust Pro Gym, look for these. I don't know if you can see this bright blue door, or
Teal door.
the teal door, and the reflection of the camera
It's
there.
in the posing room.
It's in the
Guys
posing
can't
room.
miss it.
This is our office. Instagram is just Atlas Nutrition. Myself, Justin Vetters. Nothing fancy. No @fit Instagrams. Anything. It's just my name. Look me up by name. And for anyone that's working on shows and things this year, we are actually doing a private. I don't want to say private. I want to say a fitness exhibition. It's non-sanctioned. It's not an NPC show. It's not a Musclemania show. It's not affiliated with any organization. It's a private show that we're hosting in Fort Collins. It's on September 21st. There's a men's and a women's division. It's a short show. It's a fitness exhibition. But the key difference being, and I feel like this is a good conversation to have segued into this, is that on top of the physical, the aesthetic of the athlete, we're also going to judge based on story. when people register for this show, we have a text block to fill out on the registration form that says, give us a snippet of your story. Share with us your adversity. If you got, a story about weight loss or struggling with food, or you've overcome some form of adversity and now you're here, single parent,
everything.
Anything. We want to hear that because we're gonna read all of them the night before the show. And so we want to hear everybody's story because that factors into judging. Wow. And that's September 21st. It's in Fort Collins, and we're going to give away $1,000 to each winner.
Wow.
So $1,000 on the line for one guy and one female with a good physique and a really good story to tell.
I better start getting in shape.
There you go.
That was awesome. You listen, you guys, that's incredible. Really, just from hearing that, you guys can really understand the kind of integrity and the kind of values-based system that Justin is operating from. And so I hope that anything, not just one story, but the many, pages of the story have inspired you. And if anything, it has elicited some form of massive action that you can and will take here in the short term that's going to help you move closer towards that perspective. And in the end, you guys just understand and always remember, it is always, always, always your interpretation and your reaction to whatever circumstance that might be believing or holding you back. And if you're willing to do the work, endure the pain, and grow from it, you too can find yourself on the greener grass. So until next time, I'm Nicholas Natt with Natt Fitness, and we are signing off.